Hi, the mainlander. And for those who were concerned, what's the point in being concerned? Nevertheless, don't worry, I'm back. After another weekend of a roller coaster of emotional turbulence, almost insane, I have returned and I'm back. I'm back with insight. And, not to justify my mental health, but I have seen a relative pattern, and I think I can explain that. And I'll relate that to great thinkers, recognized great thinkers of our race. And I'll start off with Albert Einstein, Leonardo da Vinci, and Vincent van Gogh. And the point is, I'm sure if you ask Siri, that there will be evidence that all of the three gentlemen, great thinkers, which I mentioned, have evidently been through periods of their life where their mental health was, apparently not good. For example, I'm sure Vincent van Gogh cut his own ear off. Now, that brings to me, a bit early for Kung Fu, innit? Visions of Mark Chopper Reid. Good day. But the point is this, and I actually support this, and if it's not documented, I'll probably document it. That, like I've already explained, the pyramid diagram is actually a diagram of systematical hierarchy. It's not rocket science. And it is actually a system which is effective. So it's my theory that knowledge is in stages for good reason. And basically, it's my belief that it's relative to this blog, and I've not even said the title. It's relative to this blog and psychological relative topics, that basically it's my belief that we're not using the most part of our brain. So therefore, when you actually do attain an enlightenment of knowledge, of learning, that you actually use more of the brain or parts of the brain that you didn't previously use. And that can in turn, I describe it as a threshold of sanity, where the knowledge, what you've learned, has opened your horizons. It's opened your train of thinking. Sometimes I'm going to relate this to quantum physics. When someone would learn stuff such as quantum physics, that will change their whole perception and their perspective, and also it will change their brain energy. Now, I'll put my life on it that an average person, if they undertook a brain activity scan, CT or CAT scanner, I'm not sure which one it is, if they undertook a brain scan which showed their brain activity before they learned quantum physics and after, on my life, I'm sure there will be a great significance increase in regards to parts of the brain that weren't being used previously. Now, not to ramble on, the title of this blog is the cross, the square, and the cube. Now, as funny, as weird as it may seem, this knowledge in particular is inspired from the weekend of almost insane delusional mind states. And it's relative to a poem which I posted on Sunday morning around 9-10 o'clock, and it's on the Empath Protection Forum, and it's also on Beats, Bars and Breeds, which, if you don't know, is my poetry, rap, spoken word page. Ours, because I've given that to the community. I've give all my pages to the community. And basically, that poem, for those who can't understand it, and I've left it encrypted for good reason. And my theory is, it's for those who want to know. If you don't want to know, then it's just gibberish. You know, if you are curious or you have insight, then that might make a lot of sense to you. You know, I'll tell you straight, that poem is from divine inspiration, and you know, my interpretation of that poem, it is very insightful and spiritual and deep. You know, but don't listen to me. I'm bananas. Right, so today's blog is the cross, the square and the cube. So you can refer back to my blog, the cross, the swastika and the pratika, if you have not already done so. And that will give you more insight into this blog. Well, basically the cross, you know, it's a very common religious symbol, but I made a relation between the 4 points of the cross being relative to the 4 elements of the earth. There's fire, air, earth and water, and that's highly relevant. And in addition, I made a personal relationship. Well, I'm sure it's nothing new that the 4 points of the cross could also be relative to the 4 F's of the reptilian brain. And if you're not versed on that, just again, go and ask Siri, the reptilian brain, the 4 F's. And basically the theory goes that the human being has 3 parts of the brain. The reptilian brain here at the back, the frontal and the mammal. And it's my personal theory that we are on a sociological level are not utilizing all of our brain, and that's common fact. It's nothing new. And basically we're utilizing too much of the reptilian brain, and then sociologically it's bad. That's another story, but it's relative. So I realized that because I relate the cross to the 4 elements of the earth, in architectural symbology and ancient symbology, a square is you know, common. The triangle, the square, the circle, they're very common symbols and shapes. And like I always say, a symbol could have thousands of reasons. You can't just associate one meaning to one symbol. But for the point of this blog, I relate the square and the cross. I think they're highly relative to each other, but evidently they're slightly different. But I relate the 4 points of the cross and the 4 corners of the square to the 4 elements of the earth. Air, fire, earth and water. And again, I relate the 4 corners and the 4 points to the 4 F's of the reptilian brain. Now, this is relative to my blog, The Pentagon Epiphany. Whereas the pentagram, 5-pointed star, is often within a pentagram. And for me, that represents the circuitivity of the 5 senses being utilized, and you gain a higher consciousness, a higher enlightenment. And again, the cross being within the square is relative. So the theory has it that, to cut a long story short, basically, when your four Fs are moving in balance, and that's the pratica, and I've got a diagram, but it seems the footage has stopped. When your four Fs are moving in the right direction, clockwise rather than anti-clockwise, so that's the clockwise is the pratica and anti-clockwise is the swastika, that I realised that the cross is actually a balance of them two movements. So spirit gaining